how to look even more stupid than I already am. Two Naruto shirts in a row, somebody stop me. Jesus Christ. Okay, so we're gonna have another look, a 2024 updated look at my Shonen Jump manga tier list, because somehow, about a year and some change on from the last one, I have somehow read and caught up to 16 more Shonen Jump manga. So, we're going to be going through those and tier listing them alongside the others that I tier listed last year. Another 16, I believe there was 16 last year, and now there's another 16. So, these we got some bangers on the list though, so I'm really excited to take a look at these because I've been really wanting to talk about them a bit. So, talk about them a bit. That just kind of, I mumbled that. Anyway, point is, I have updated the previous tier list a little bit. So the only reason at this point right now, so we'll talk a little bit about the changes I made. I've gathered some of my manga collection here to illustrate and help me talk about them a bit. Some volume 1s and such. So shit, there's too many. Spy Family is still doing fine. It's as Spy Family as it ever was. The little arc with Martha and Henry going on right now is a little peculiar, but does help with the world building a lot and understand what kind of happened in the build up to all of the the cause of the tension between the East and the West. So that's helpful stuff, and it's relevant to the characters that we know already. But it's the same as ever. Chainsaw Man has, really struggled recently. I will not be collecting part 2. I stopped at volume 11 of Chainsaw Man. I really don't like what part 2 is going on right now, to be honest with you. It's a mess and stupid, and it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's in line with Denji's character, I think, and everything that happened so far makes sense, but it's also really dragging its feet, pacing-wise. Feels like, every single chapter, every new chapter I read, I'm like, come on, really? This is so stupid. Why are we doing this? Maybe we'll look back when it's done and be like, it all makes sense, but right now I'm not having it. Demon Slayer, same as ever. It's Demon Slayer is really good. The thing that, I'm giving a little edge to manga that have finished already, and Demon Slayer is one that has finished already, because once we know how everything finishes out, it's like, oh yeah, we see where all the pieces are there, and we can look at it as a whole, but so it's nicer that way, and gives me a better feeling. So those have a bit of an edge, which is kind of like why Dr. Stone and Demon Slayer are a little higher than they might be otherwise. Vigilantes is still pretty good. Looking back on it now after it's done, I believe it was done when I recorded the last one too. But looking back on it now that it's done, it's like, yeah, it's not bad. Pretty solid still. Obviously, Bokubai and Astro Lost in Space, Witch Watch. Witch Watch is still doing Witch Watch things, which is crazy to me. I'm surprised it's dragged out for this long. Fire Punch is still confusing. But yeah, Dr. Stone's conclusion was obviously really good. It could have been better, in my opinion, Dr. Stone's conclusion, but it's still not bad. Black Clover moving to Jump Giga is sad. But it's still one of my favorites. Honestly, the only reason it's not below My Hero Academia is personal preference. But I am sad it's moved to Jump Giga, but hopefully it rounds out this final arc nicely and we can look back on it fondly. Yozakura Family right now is killing it in its final arc. It's doing really well. As of today, the day I'm recording this, a bunch of a new round of the magazine chapters just came out. I believe that today was 233. So we're gonna see all the characters and round out their character arcs, and it's doing really well. right now. So I'm really happy with where it's going, and it still maintained like the same silliness that it always has. And I am curious about what's going to happen with the twins, because they haven't really done all that much yet, and aside from just, you know, pass the tests of their aunts and uncles. But it does look very... Yozakura family's final arc looks really promising. What else? I don't have Volume 1 of One Piece yet. I'm gonna collect the box sets eventually, but Egghead right now is like at its peak, where Egghead is peaking. It's on its way out, and it's starting to transition. But the lore dump we just got from Vegapunk, crazy stuff. It's hard to believe we're in the final saga of One Piece. Sakamoto Days is doing well, as Sakamoto Days has always been. It's one of the most consistently good manga I read on a week-to-week basis. And I'm really looking forward to the upcoming anime. I'm excited to see what they do with it. So that'll be fun. Kaiju number 8, I can't tell if it's ending or not, but it's still as good as ever. This, you know, where it's at now could be its final arc, because at the time of recording, it's like, Kafka is standing side by side with Mina, and like that's like the whole fulfillment. Like pretty much, it feels like pretty much everyone's rounded out their character arcs. So like there could be another huge finale, and like they could take number 9 beyond where he is right now, or reveal some ultimate kaiju lord, some shit like that. But I can't tell. Jujutsu Kaisen, I wish it was better right now. I really struggle with the Sukuna fight. I do. Because like so much of every chapter week to week is like explaining curse techniques and all this garbage. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I get there has to be logic, and you know, there has to be consistency in how the techniques work, and like how it all interweaves with each other, all the different domain expansions and all that garbage, but it's just not entertaining week to week anymore. And Gege just came back after a 3-week break and just put out some fucking 13-page garbage. So I've not really been having Jujutsu Kaisen recently. On the other hand, My Hero Academia, its final arc was really, really strong, and it's going to be ending in a few weeks. Which is a good thing. I like when manga just tell the story and end without trying to drag it out. So, big fan of how it's, like, the way that it's ending as well, where it's covering all its bases. The fight between Deku and Shigaraki, I think, left a little something to be desired, but for the most part, really, really strong all around. And we're all, like, especially now that it's on its way out, My Hero Academia is going to be looked back on really fondly, I think. Happy about that. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I brought more Volume 1s to go along with the new manga. So, these are going in order of, I'm going to start with the ones that I caught up on most recently. For the most part, there's some exceptions to this order, but for the most part, I'm going on starting with the ones I caught up on most recently, and then the last ones I cover will be the ones I caught up, I read closer to when the last video came out, the last tier list. So, let's talk about the manga I just finished catching up on, and am really looking forward to its chapter tomorrow, Dandadan. This manga is exactly the right kind of chaotic. It's so strong. It's not right. Like, the story it's trying to tell, right, it's exactly the kind of, like, this is exactly the kind of crude, silly, goofy that Chainsaw Man was never quite. Like, this lands with me so much more on a personal preference level. It's so much fun to read. And not only that, but when it gets into its later arcs, it actually starts being really emotionally compelling as well. Like, it's just a blast all the way through, and it never lets you go for the most part. Like, it keeps dragging you on these wacky misadventures, and it just keeps, and like, especially the strongest arc by far, in my opinion, was the one where we saw Vamala's backstory, and that arc just kept expanding on itself, right? It just kept getting crazier when we thought it would finally, like, oh my god, they're so fucked, they're so screwed. Like, it kept getting bigger, and it resolved in a way that, like, it kind of had to, right? Because they were kind of driven so far into a corner. But yeah, it was... Dandadan is so much fun. The characters are delightful. Like, the characters in Dandadan are exactly the kind of quirky, off-the-wall, fucking brutally honest and crude, rude-ass fucking misfits that fit in a manga like this, right? It's you know, between Ken, Momo, Ira, those three are so much fun, but even Gigi adds to it as well. Like, it's just... And then, you know, you add, what's-his-face, who's a riot. He's fucking hilarious. The other guy who pilots the mech, and Vamala. And now we've added, like, at this point, the last chapter was 159, and 160 is coming out tomorrow. So if you know what happens in 159, you know that's a big deal that where it's going next. But there's that new character from the board game. I forgot his name off the top of my head, but who was thrown into the mix a bit to kind of throw a wrench into the little romance subplot between Okarun and Momo. So everything, and like the romance is actually really sweet. It's really cute and innocent and fun, and like it's somehow, despite being like the only thing that's a little childish, you know, amongst all of this absolute wackiness and violence and crudeness of the characters, it still works so well, in my opinion. It's just so charming. Like, it's so strong. Like, again, this doesn't have the storytelling prowess, the storytelling, like, the narrative itself is not anything to, like, write home about, but the misadventures are just so much fun and charming, and I can't help myself from just enjoying every second of it. Like, it really is, it's just not quite on the same, like, you know, there's no like driving force really behind these characters' actions. It's just like, here's a problem, we solve it. And that's not necessarily a bad setup, but it just lacks the oomph that a lot of these, the ones in the manga in the S tier of my tier list have. So for that reason, it's going on it's borderline S, but it is a strong, you'll see I added an A+ tier since last time. This is a strong A+, bordering on S. It's so good. I really can't say enough good things. I was really surprised by how much I ended up enjoying this one. And because it was always one of those things that kind of seemed, it was always one of those manga for me that kind of seemed like I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, because I've always been a little iffy on Chainsaw Man. Like, the kind of like crude, I'm always a little more partial towards, you know, more traditional shonen stuff that's like a little more, I guess, almost more childish, like more straightforward, you know, and a lot less like chaotic and all over the place and goofy and, you know, just wild, no holds barred like this is. But it's so much fun. And like the story, even like, especially you get to like Vamala's backstory, and just all the shenanigans they get into, and like even it makes sense how their powers evolve, and like, you know, seeing the crazy mix of like the ghosts and yokai versus the aliens, and how like some of the yokai play into their having powers, and then some of the aliens who eventually become good. Like, just seeing it all mixed together is just so much fun. I really can't say enough good things. If you're looking for the right brand of chaos, Dandadan is it. Like, it's got a pretty solid, like, you know, these characters are so good, so fun. It does, like, the pacing, I think, is pretty excellent. Like, it hasn't really missed a step so far. It's just so much fun. It really is. I can't say enough good things. It's just, you know, it's just missing that oomph that a lot of these ones in the S tier have. So for that reason, it's A+. But I really, really enjoy it. So There you go. Next up, Kagurabachi. The new kid, the new hot boy on the block, Kagurabachi. Now, of course, we all saw the memes from a while back, but you actually get, you give it a chance, and it turns out it surprises you. And, I saw an article that was like, Shonen Jump editor-in-chief reveals what series will be carrying the magazine into the future, and obviously this is Kagurabachi. Because it has all the foundation laid for a really compelling and a really strong long-running shonen. It really does. Somehow, it already feels like it has its own identity in the Shonen Jump universe, right? Because among all of these other manga that are incredible and, heavily based on action, storytelling, and, like, a long-term fucking drawn-out drama, and these, like, deep characters with a lot of sides to them, and, like, powers that could come from anywhere and are based off of whatever they feel like. Somehow Kagurabachi already feels like it has its own space among all of them, and it's amazing. We're still so early that I really can't say too much, and I don't think Chihiro is, especially right off the bat, like, he's not immediately the most compelling protagonist you'll ever meet within chapter 1, but he really does help carry it, and him as a lead is, he's a little, he's not very expressive. He's not by any means like a traditional loud, obnoxious main character, right? He's much more thorough. He's much more silent and, get shit done kind of guy. So I can appreciate him for that, but it's also kind of hard to read him a lot. And, like, kind of get what he's feeling. But it does usually end up becoming clear at some point. So overall, Kagurabachi has done really good. The art's stunning, by the way. I forgot to mention that for Dandadan, but a lot of the Dandadan art is unbelievable. Kagurabachi's art also very, very good. So, like whoever, I forget the author, but the author's name, but they just immediately have a feel for it. You can tell, like, the way they, lay out the action and draw it with, like, the motion and stuff, it's really, really nice. And the story it's telling so far, like any good long-running shonen, it kind of starts off small, and then it's, like, starting to build on itself now. So we're in, like, the peak, especially, like, right where we are now is, like, essentially the peak of the Rakuzaichi. And, things happening week to week, it's not, like, too much, but it adds just enough to keep you interested, and, like week to week, each chapter just gives you just enough to keep you interested in, like, all right, what's gonna happen next? Like, again, there's a lot of, like, analyzing abilities and stuff, but it's not intolerable for sure. There's a lot of, like, analyzing characters' abilities. How can they play, use them to their advantage? How can they develop them further? Like, what are their limits? That kind of stuff. So there are a lot of, like, internal monologue. There's a lot of, like, internal monologuing, but it also does, like, especially, oh man, what the fuck is his name? It develops good characters. It's just recently developed its first good secondary character in the forlorn son of the head of the, whatever family it is that heads the Rakuzaichi. I can't remember, but like that, him awakening to his true abilities was really nicely done. I think, like, nothing super special, but made sense in, maybe a little Deus Ex Machina, but generally made sense within what we know about everything in the universe so far. So really strong so far. In good conscience, I can't give it higher than an A because it's still really early on, but it has all of the makings for a really strong long-running series down the road. So if you haven't started reading Kagurabachi, hop on the train and you can be a hipster like me. Don't you want to be like me? No. But yeah, it's been very strong so far. So for, like, 40 chapter 40 just came out today, and for what it is, at this point in time, it's looking very promising going forward, and it's already done a really great job of like setting up its universe and, you know, the rules of the sacred swords and shit. Like, it's got a really nice premise. It's just really strong, I think. So, big fan. Looking forward to more Kagurabachi going forward. Next up, Blue Box. This was another recent catch-up of mine. Now, I'm not, you know, you could probably tell I'm a little hit or miss on romance, you know, manga, anime, whatever. I'm a little particular about what I actually like. And Blue Box is, especially for, like, this is on the same level as Quintuplets, in my opinion, but it is a little bit different stylistically, right? Because there's a very clear pairing between Taiki and Shinatsu. So there are other characters in the mix, but, you know, obviously, you know from the very beginning, this is Endgame. So that's not the same as Quince, right? So, because it's clearly a harem. But this, I just can't say enough good things about how cute it is. It's fun to read, it's charming, the characters have, like, you know, their feelings aren't over dramatic, they're totally justified, but, you know, they're obviously still in their emotional, like, high points of their lives, like being in high school and, like, experiencing experiencing love for the first time, essentially. But it's, you know, it feels so sweet and innocent, but it also handles all of these situations very maturely. So, and even the way they use, you know, basketball for Chinatsu and badminton for Taiki as, like, sort of a medium to, I guess, you know, express how serious they are about, you know, their passions and, you know, achieving their dreams, essentially, as cheesy as that is. But, like, doing it together and that kind of stuff, and it's just really, really sweet. By far one of my favorite romances I've read, in my opinion. Just so much fun. Like, it flew by when I was catching up. It just flew by. So I think it might be on its way out, which is a good thing, because it does kind of feel like we've done just about everything they need to. So it's probably going to be starting to wrap up I could be wrong about that, but it does feel like it's sort of close to on its way out. There's only a few things left that it feels like they need to do, and it doesn't really feel like it's necessary to continue on past high school for them, because Chinatsu's going to graduate at this point. Chinatsu's going to graduate soon. Doesn't really feel like it should continue past high school. Doesn't really make sense for it. But it's just adorable. Like, even how characters like Hina, Kyo, and, you know, I struggle with her a little bit, of course, because she's a little bit, I guess, frivolous. Is it her? Her name's not Akane, is it? It's not. You know, Twin Tails. What the fuck is her name? Akane. Ayame, thank you. Yeah, Ayame is who I'm thinking of. Like, her kind of last minute being paired up with Kyo is a little interesting. I think they're a cute little pairing, but she, you know, even her, like, you know, Ayame being, like, the one who's like, if the boy says he likes me, and then whatever, I'll just kiss him and see what happens. Like, see if it makes my heart flutter a little bit, and if it does, then whatever. But, like, and, like, her being, like, I think it was her that was particular about stuff where she was, like, criticizing someone and some dude, and it was like, I'm breaking up with you, you're crazy. You know, so there are, even the side characters, I feel like, have some, you know, they are clearly brought in with a purpose, and they're charming in their own way as well, especially Hina. I really like how they handled Hina in Blue Box. So, if you like romance at all, Blue Box anime is coming out starting October, or read it. It is just, it's delightful. It's so delightful. It really is. So, big recommend from me. I don't want to touch on this one too much because I've talked about it before. Undead Unluck. I've caught up, of course, since I reviewed it on the seasonal roundup. And where it's gone, since, picking up from where the anime left off, what it's done has made perfect sense, pretty much. I don't think it's made a single misstep. Some of the things have confused me a little bit. The only thing I'm really kind of iffy about is how they've implemented the use of souls. And I don't want to speak on it too much because I really don't understand it. Undead Unluck has always built up, it's taken the perspective of, the very foundation of life as we know it. It looks beyond, it looks into the very core layers of everything, right? That's the foundation of the negation abilities. And even if it's weird or off-putting, nothing's off limits when it comes to negation abilities, and I appreciate that. And all of the characters I think are handled pretty well for the most part. There are some that are weaker than others, of course, but I think for the most part, especially now that Fuko's really so close to gathering everyone, chapter just came out today. She said, the only person left is Tatiana, after looping, of course. So everything that has been done so far has generally made sense, and I like that it doesn't linger too long on any one thing. It never takes too long to solve the issue that solve anyone's tragedy and help them awaken to their negation abilities in a safer way. So it has done really well so far, and it feels like we're getting close to that final battle. So it's just been really strong so far, and I'm thinking, I imagine once it ends, it'll be we're gonna look back on it fondly. Everything's gonna come together. It's gonna be good. And the twist with Andy as well that happened post loop is whew, so wild, so crazy. But yeah, Undead Unluck is an easy S. It's got a purpose. It's the characters are great. I think especially Fuko and Andy are done really well. Easy S. Just above. Let me see. At this point right now, it's hard. It's up here with Kaiju number 8 and Mission Yozakura Family, somewhere in there. So it doesn't really struggle with the pacing. It's just a delightful read, I think. It never keeps you. It never feels like it drags its feet too much, which is really nice. And I'm really curious how things are going to play out with the 10 superior rules or whatever. I forget if they're the 10 superior something or other. Some 10 something rules. I forget. Yeah. So big recommend on Undead Unluck for me. Just a fun read, and it's pretty unique. Again, kind of like Kagurabachi, it has its own very distinct identity among Shonen Jump, which again has a whole slew of incredible manga. So big fan of Undead Unluck. Again, don't want to touch on this one for too long because I've talked about it before, and even shown this on a video before. Magilumiere. Now, of course, I recommended Magilumiere in its own video. Magilumiere, I'll just go ahead and read it. Magilumiere is an A+. It's so good. Again, this is another one kind of like Kaiju number 8 where it might be on its way out, but I can't tell it. It could evolve another stage from where it is now, or it could just be done. Either one would be good because again, it kind of feels like we've reached the apex of the character arcs and all that stuff. So Magilumiere could just end, or could evolve a stage further. I don't think it would evolve more than one stage further from where it is now. But it's just been really strong so far. Pretty much everything that's done, when it introduces new characters, they obviously have a purpose for them. Even, since now I can kind of dip into spoiler territory a little bit. Everything that kind of has happened post time skip has been interesting. Like, especially recently, where we've finally gotten to see the truth of what happened 10 years ago. I forget how many years ago it was, but what happened when Shigemoto and the guy who's now the head of AST, had their first magical girl business, and what happened to Alice. So it's because, again, that sort of points to this being towards the end, where we've finally seen the truth of that, like, lingering mystery. But even just, like, from the beginning, it starts out small with, like, small little arcs, small missions, and it constantly just, it's adding new characters, building them up from scratch, but each one clearly has a purpose. And, we're building up in the missions and the danger and, like, evolving the Alice system and all that stuff. The characters are learning as they go, and it's very appropriate for a little small startup business like theirs. And the characters, especially Kana, she's one of my favorite lead characters in all of manga right now. She's so relatable from right off the bat, and just watching her grow is so delightful. Like, as a character, watching her grow and develop as a character is so delightful. And the characters surrounding her, maybe they're, some of them can feel like fodder, especially when it gets into later on. You have girls like Iroha and the other one. But even then, like, those two girls who join Magilumiere later, they're introduced earlier on, and they have a purpose to them. Like, they don't really necessarily develop much as characters, but they do have a purpose, and they're meant to be there, and they don't feel out of place at all, and they don't barge in where they're not welcome over Kana's, this is Kana's story more than anything. So they don't intrude on that. They don't, hinder her development at all. And seeing Kana, especially from the beginning, and then later on, getting closer and closer to Koshigaya. Thank you. I forgot her name for some reason. But yeah, seeing Kana as she, like, gets close with Koshigaya from the beginning, it's really charming and sweet. So, again, big recommend to Magilumiere, easy A+. It's got a lot of good action as well. I like the setup, like, just the, like, almost science-backed magical girls. I love that concept. It's so goofy, so fun, and just, it's just so much fun to read. It's one of the ones I look forward to the most every week when I read new chapters. It's just delightful. So yeah, great stuff. It's got a good mix of everything, except romance, I guess. But that's, it doesn't need it. And also, what the fuck is her name? The Ast girl who just showed back up in the most recent chapter. Or was there a chapter before that? She showed up and then she started explaining herself in the most recent chapter. The Ast girl that originally Kana wanted to become friends with and reach out to, and now they're kind of working together. Again, this feels like Endgame stuff. Those two, like, working together to take on this, like, huge, massive mutating Kai that's they're dealing with right now. It feels like Endgame stuff, and that sort of relationship between those two is developed quite nicely. Not anything spectacular, but it all makes sense. It all works really well. So, good stuff. I really like Magilumiere. Okay, next up I don't have yet. I don't know if I'm going to get it even. But Ken Wakui's new manga, Astro Royale. This is still in its infancy right now, but it does look a little bit promising that it will continue, because Volume 1 seemed like it sold pretty well. So, Astro Royale, its concept is really nice, actually. When I read Chapter 1, I was like, whoa, this actually seems like it might be really, really good. I don't think it's... Again, this is still so much in its infancy, but I've been reading it since it first came out. It's hard to tell, because a lot of what it's done so far has felt maybe a little rushed, not really building as much as it could off of its great premise. But it has introduced us to, like, the characters that, a lot of the big figureheads within, like, that Yakuza squad, the nice Yakuza squad or whatever it is. But it's been all right so far. It's not been bad by any means. It's just, I was expecting a little bit more from it, and, these, like, 2 or 3 chapter arcs that we've gotten so far have kind of, like, failed to deliver on that so far. But again, it's still in its infancy, and I do enjoy reading it every week. These characters aren't really anything notable at all, but there's still room for development and growth there. So I am expecting Wakui to deliver, because Tokyo Revengers was great. So I am expecting Wakui to deliver with Astro Royale. It just depends on how long it goes. So I'm really hoping it gets to go for as long as Wakui wants it to, because I am enjoying it so far. So again, without, on good conscience, I can't give it higher than a B right now. And it's kind of a low B, because again, it's kind of fallen short of my expectations so far, but it has been enjoyable. So I just need a little bit more. I need a little bit more from Astro Royale as of right now. But of course, I'm probably going to do another one of these next year. So when that happens, hopefully we'll have more perspective on that. But so far it's been pretty good. Definitely not anything to sneeze at. It's just so much in its infancy that it's hard to tell. So next up, Boruto. Now, obviously I read the manga, I did not watch the anime, so I don't know anything about the fillers. But Boruto has been really, really good so far. Again, this is kind of like I talked about Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest in my Kodansha manga tier list. This falls into the category of that one, where we're still kind of in the middle stages, and I need to know how everything is going to round out, right? Because especially post-time skip, Boruto has been great so far. So, but especially even pre-time skip, where it was setting everything up, and we got to see it's especially I love the way it started out, where it just building the next generation Naruto world, where we get to see the next generation of talent of ninjas, of Konoha ninjas, and just seeing them interact with each other for a bit, take on the Chunin exams. Everything it started out with made sense, and even how it used the little small arcs from the beginning to sort of build the world, and we got to see these new characters and see the use of the scientific ninja tools and all this nonsense. Everything it did made sense from, and I only started reading it after Two Blue Vortex had already started. So I don't know how it would have been experiencing it month to month, and I am including Two Blue Vortex, obviously. I'm including Two Blue Vortex as part of Boruto, post-time skip, obviously. So, but yeah, it has been really good so far, and especially once it started, after it introduces Kalki and starts building on the whole ski. Oh God, I can't believe this. My brain. Otsutsuki, thank you. It starts with the karma stuff, the Otsutsuki stuff. It's so interesting. I love, it could have easily. It still does a lot of good things with Naruto and Sasuke, right? Where they still use, I think Kishimoto is responsible for the story for the most part. But, Kishimoto, he still has Naruto and Sasuke do some fighting, and, but they don't take the spotlight from the younger generation, right? Because it's all about the younger, Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki, right? So it's all about the new generation, and it doesn't take away from them too much. If at all, really, because it's really nice to see adult Sasuke and Naruto fighting together. It's really cool. So it's just really strong so far. A lot, it could have so easily fallen into the trap where it just feels like Naruto all over again, but it really doesn't. Kishimoto knows what he's doing. It just, with the introduction of the scientific ninja tools and the karma and stuff, and the transformations into the Otsutsuki now, with Boruto and karma, and the introduction of Ada is such a fucking world-flipping thing, right? She's such an interesting presence in the world of Naruto. So it's really, really cool. I really like what it's been doing so far. Again, I can't, just because, and this is just because we still don't know where it's going quite yet. I don't feel super confident about where it's going, and not in a bad way. Like, I'm not sure where it's going as, like, a reader invested in the story. I'm like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? Like, genuinely, I'm not sure what's going to happen next. So just because we haven't really rounded out the story yet, I have to give it an A+. I imagine it will be an S by the time it ends. But it's been really, really fun so far. It really has. It could have so easily fallen into the trap of just being Naruto all over again, but it has its own identity, and Boruto is different enough as a character from Naruto to really stand on his own. So, and again, at this point, post Ada fucking screwing the world, flipping that shit on its head, and everything's gone to shit. Naruto is like goddamn lost in purgatory, and Sasuke is a tree. Like, it's so hard to tell where it's going, and it's like, that's the lowest point. Like, post time skip, Boruto went off to train with his new abilities and such. Like, it's just so unsure of where it's gonna go from here. So I'm really looking forward to more, but I can't give it an S just yet. But it's been really great so far. It has. Next up, a little bit of a surprise for yours truly, Akane-Banashi. This is a shonen manga disguised as a Rakugo manga, because everything about it screams shonen. Like, especially when it comes to like the pacing of it and like how the events of the story unfold, right? Because Akane, who's a really great lead, by the way, she's super fun, super charming, and just seeing her do her best all the time really gets you on board with her story. And I guess the stories she tells also. But it's just like the way, it starts out small, it keeps building on itself. She has training arcs, essentially. What are essentially training arcs. It introduces rivals and, characters into the story that, like, are kind of rivals. Like, she has a little home where she has, like, senpais and people that are more experienced than her, and she even watches them grow as Rakugoka. Like, it's just it's set up like a shonen manga, but it's hiding beneath a coat of painting that's all about Rakugo. And Rakugo is not something that I expected myself to get invested in. Like, especially if I were to go see a Rakugo show, I probably would not give two shits. But seeing it portrayed this way is really nice, actually. It makes it really interesting, and it's one of those things that you'd never really, especially as a Westerner, you'd never really be exposed to, right? Like, so it's interesting to see how, they implement it in the modern era, because that's a part of it too. Like, is Rakugo still even relevant in the modern era, like with the cell phones and shit, and like how can they implement new technology into the world of Rakugo, if at all? Like, but it's just great. It really is very, very good. Like, it feels like, where we are right now in the story, where Michael, it's called Maikaru, which is just Michael, but the big lad Ani-san just got promoted to Shinichi, and it's been really, just all around, it's been a really good read. Like, again, it has all of the things that are good about shonen manga, right? Like, it has these points where Akane is like, she doesn't win, she struggles, she loses, she falls down, like, but you see her overcome her own the obstacles within herself and become a better storyteller, and she learns from her mistakes and like overcomes her rivals and like has these super satisfying moments where like, yeah, like, fuck yeah, like all the results of your training paid off. Like, it has all of the things that are really good about shonen manga disguised underneath a coat of Rakugo painting, of Rakugo coding. So, like, it's just great, and Akane is such a good lead. It's just really fun, and even the other characters are nothing to sneeze at. Like, they add to the world and to the story, and it's just fun. Like, and again, like, there are, just like any good shonen, there's like here's a guy that's like super fucking talented. He's gonna be a Futatsume before you even realize it. He's studying under that super strict guy who caused the incident however many years ago it was, and who like the mass expulsion incident from however many years ago, and he's training under that guy. He's the only Rakugoka that Master Isha will ever believe in. He's a fucking once in a generation talent. And you know, there's another rival girl who's like, she's a model turned Rakugoka, or she's an idol, or I don't fucking remember. And she's studying under another one of, like, you know, another huge name in Rakugo, and like she's the only pupil of that teacher. And it's like Akane is like has her moments where she loses to them, and has her well, she hasn't really beaten that one fucker, but you know that she loses and then beats the other girl. Like, it's so fun to read, and the world is really nice. The characters are fun. It's just really solid, really strong. So it's a strong A+, strong A+ for Akane-Banashi. It's got all the things I enjoy about shonen manga disguised underneath the Rakugo stuff. Really good. Next up, Gokurakugai. Now, I started reading this at the beginning of the year on a whim, and wow, was I surprised. This is a big surprise. This is a monthly release, and it's so much fun. It really is an absolute delight. Again, I think there's only 19, maybe 20 chapters out right now, but it's monthly, so it's a bit longer. I think this volume only has, the first 3 chapters in it is just this volume. So it's been really, really enjoyable so far. Like, the world that it builds immediately is interesting and dynamic and fun, and the characters are, like, quirky and interesting, and, like, they even, like, the side characters have their own gimmicks that make it feel unique. Like, it's just a really enjoyable world, like, really intriguing world that they've built it just right off the bat, and seeing how they interact with it as it expands and we learn more about what's the deal with the whatchamacallits that I'm forgetting, but the thing that almost half of it's just so much fun. Like, it's not quite like it is an action shonen, but it feels more mature than most shonen out there. And I don't know who they let do the translation on this, but he's having a field day. Whoever it is having a fucking field day, because just reading this in English is an absolute blast, because they went above and beyond with, like, the translation, the localization. It feels like, actual fucking people who are weird and shit. Like, it's not just like whatever language. Like, they actually have really good, strong, interesting, dynamic word choice. It's very fun to read in English. So big fan of that. And just, like, there hasn't been anything super significant thus far, aside from seeing the one guy who became a, for lack of a better term, demon. I forget the name of it, but it was, the guy who was, I think, Tao's brother, if I remember right, or maybe friend or something like that, but something along those lines, and seeing that little family they have set up. And how that's just wondering how that's all gonna play out down the line. It's just really, really enjoyable. It's so much fun to read, and like, because it relies really heavily on its characters, not primarily action based. So even if you're not typically into shonen, Gokurakugai is such an interesting world that I think pretty much anybody could enjoy it. Like, it's just really fun. It's got this weird, a lot of the things you see are, like, weird and off-putting, and it's fun. I really like it. And again, like, I think it handles its characters in a really mature, nice way. Like, it's just an absolute joy to read, in my opinion. I don't think I'm gonna do a good. I haven't done it, and I don't think I would do a good job, like, explaining everything there is to know about it. But this is one of those that's, like, best experienced for yourself. just read it, and I think you'll be hooked immediately. Like if you're wondering about this one, I genuinely think if you're open-minded enough, you will be hooked immediately because it is that good. It is really fun to read, and it never really struggles with pacing or anything like that. It never drags its feet too much. It's just a really, really fun read. So definitely recommend. One of the biggest recommends, actually. This is a strong A+. Again, too early on for me to really judge it, but this is a very strong A+. Manga is the name of the demons. Not Make America Great Again, but just Manga. Yeah, and like he even, introducing characters like that one informant motherfucker who's a fucking goofball, and like the pink girl whose name I forget, and does she have twin tails? She probably has twin tails. I can't remember. She's on volume 2 right over there, and I don't know. I'm not going over there. But Gokurakugai, just really, really good. Just it's got all of the makings for a really, really strong series going forward. So I'm really looking forward to more. Yeah, huge fan. Next up is Nue's Exorcist. I do. How can I put this? Shonen Jump has been very. It hasn't really had a good old-fashioned fantasy harem in a good while, and I think the Japanese kids are eating this up, as far as I understand, because the sales have been quite good. So yeah, like. It hasn't been, it definitely has not been bad. It's not been bad by any means, I don't think. There has been a little too much training, in my opinion. I wish there was a little more, actual action. Like, I wished... The thing that shonens, I think, do really well, especially when you look back on them, is that they start a little smaller and then build gradually. Nue's Exorcist kind of feels like it went from 1 to 100 really, really fast. And, like... Within the second arc, they're in, like, huge fucking danger. Like, they're, like, how are they gonna get out of this? That kind of thing. And there's, like, been 2 or 3 training arcs already. And as of the new chapter today, it was like, hey, Kazusa and Yajima, like, finally took care of that level 4 motherfucker. Great. But, like... And, seeing Yajima sort of win the trust of, like, the, his little sister figure, or whoever, I don't think she's actually a little sister, but, was sort of his little sister. Maybe she is? I can't fucking remember. But, that was a good talking point. Like, just, Yajima struggling to, win the trust of his sister and that kind of stuff, like... And even seeing him work alongside the other girls, it is fairly compelling stuff. Like, they haven't done a bad job by any means, the author. And it does give you the goofy sort of high school fan service you're kind of looking for. But it does deliver on the fan service end. There's no question why it is a hit with the young lads in Japan, right? If you read it, you know what I mean. It doesn't fail to deliver on the fan service end of things. But I don't quite... Again, the way the powers work, it doesn't really make all that much sense. But they are, like, based on ghosty things, so whatever, who cares? Like, it's not a huge deal. And, the training that they do, it's hard to see it actually pay off in real time. Like, it doesn't really make sense, because I think, especially most recently, like, we kind of saw, sometimes mid-fight, there'll be, like, a flashback to what Nue says, and, like, Yajima, you have to do XX things in XX point in time, and, like, Yajima finally realizes that in the middle of the fight and brings out this power you've never seen before, which is whatever. Like, Nue's powers within him are theoretically, we don't know anything about them. They could be limitless. So, and their evolution, like, mixing his abilities as well, since we know his dad used to be in the Exorcist squad, So, like, mixing their abilities, who knows what kind of effects it could have on his powers, right? So, who fuck knows? It doesn't really matter. But its storytelling has been a little touch and go. So, it's not been my favorite read by any means, but it's a B. The characters are charming enough to kind of carry it. They're not, like, amazing. They're not really even... I don't know if I would call them good just yet, but they have room to grow still. They're decent. They're decent characters, and they can carry the series on their shoulders. They're charming enough to the point where you want to see them succeed. And you hope nothing bad befalls them, right? So yeah, pretty good. Not bad is the right way to say it. Okay, Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible. This is a cute friggin' romance. It just is. Like, I talked a little bit about it on a previous seasonal roundup. And I ended up... I like series that just end. Like, they have an ending in mind and they follow through on it. Because a lot of the romance stuff I read on the Kodansha side of things really are dragging things out. But this one actually ended really nicely. It developed the main two's relationship in a way that made sense, really nice and gradual, cute, and fun. Like, just quite delightful, I thought. Like, and, ending it right there and, like, him asking her out, bam, done, easy. Like, just a really fun read. This is another one that kind of flew by, like, when I was reading it. You start reading it, it's just gone. Like, you're already done. And even like the side characters it sets up, like the little cousin and Kubo's older sister, Nagisa's older sister. Forget her name. She's hot though. The side characters it sets up, they aren't bad, and they kind of add to the little story. It's very much in the same vein as like your Komi Can't Communicates and your your fucking Angel Next Doors and all that garbage. Like, they're not garbage, but you know what I mean. Garbage is an expression of my reluctant affection. It's very delightful, and it doesn't, these characters aren't amazing by any means. Like, they don't really, but just like seeing them sort of grow together with the experiences they have is charming. So fair enough. This is a B. It's just, it doesn't do anything really spectacular, but it's just really like comfy throughout, and it does exactly what it wants to do and ends where it should. So, really nice. Alright. Mashle. Now, of course, I've talked about this twice now on seasonal roundups, but literally while season 1 was going on, I picked up the manga and started reading. Like, I've never started a manga mid-season before. I always let the anime end. This is the only one where I've actually started reading ahead while the season of the anime was airing, because I was like, I need more. And again, this is another one that just ended. It did what it needed to do and bit the dust at the right time. So yeah, like, Mashle was super enjoyable from start to finish. Like, I think its only real kind of misstep, in my opinion, was like leaving Mash out of the final arc for so long, because he kind of just comes back towards the end, like the very end of the climax, and just murders Innocent Zero with a German suplex and shit. But yeah, no, like, for the most part, the way it builds the story is, it makes sense. The characters are goofy and charming and fun, and it doesn't expand its cast too much to the point where it becomes overwhelming. So it makes sense all the way throughout, and seeing the characters grow and become, more stronger and more comfortable with themselves, and them experiencing their friendships together. It's just really, really charming, just all the way throughout. And it's hard to rank this one like among, because it is distinctly comedy. Like, it's a comedy series. It is an action shonen, but it is also very distinctly a comedy series. So it includes that among these, like, this dramatic story that it's telling. And it actually works really well. Like, the contrast between how goofy and, Mash's attitude comes off in the midst of all of this dramatic stuff it works really nicely. Just all the way throughout, even at the climax. So just the way it builds its characters, the way it builds its world, the way it builds its story, all really, really solid, really strong. This is an easy S. It's not, again, it's hard to rank it because, the resolution is fine. Like, seeing Mash be accepted by all the, in theory he would be executed for not being able to use magic. But seeing him find his place among the people in the school, and just make all these new friends, it's just delightful. It really is. So, big fan of Mashle. If you haven't watched the anime too, the animation's quite good as well. So it really delivers. The anime does. So, and we even got a season 3 announced a little bit after season 2 ended, which surprised me. So, I'm really looking forward to more of the anime. And if you haven't read, and you are someone who reads manga, Mashle is such a nice read. It's so much fun. Big fan. Okay, this is the last one I have. This was long overdue. Hunter x Hunter, or just Hunter x Hunter. I've always called it Hunter x Hunter, but it doesn't really matter. Now, this is, again, I still haven't read Yu Yu Hakusho, it's on the list, but Hunter x Hunter is one of those you hear about from everybody, and needless to say, this was a ride, catching up to Hunter x Hunter. I'm not going to claim to have understood everything about Nen, because I don't, and again, it very distinctly doesn't have the, it doesn't set out necessarily with a purpose, right? It feels like, especially with 2 of the big 3, which I caught up on since last year, and I'm going to talk about in a second. Those feel like they kind of set out and, especially Naruto, have something in mind, right? And One Piece too, to an extent. But, stuff like My Hero Academia as well, and Black Clover. Unlike those, Hunter x Hunter doesn't really feel like it sets out with a purpose necessarily, which it isn't a bad thing, but it also doesn't give me the same storytelling, relief, I guess. The stories like Naruto and One Piece, I feel so invested in those stories because you see how the characters have grown, knowing that they're striving for something. Right, and there is the thing of Gon seeing his dad, which does eventually happen and ends up kind of being a nothing burger, but that's whatever. That was fine. That was probably always going to be the case because goddamn, what's his face, Papa, is a little bit of a douche nozzle. But just seeing Gon and Killua do all of the wacky shit they get up to is actually really fun. And especially, it has a few big arcs, of course. Digitalis comes to mind, and the Chimera Ant arc, which are both wild, but especially the Chimera Ant arc. Now, one thing I always remember when I read Hunter x Hunter, when we're building up to a big fight in a shonen manga, it's always I'm not sure how this is going to play out exactly, but I'm sure, the good guys are obviously going to win in the end, and maybe some folks will die, but if they do, they maybe, there's usually not a doubt in my mind that someone's going to die, right? Unless it's Jujutsu Kaisen. But for the most part, you kind of expect, your main characters aren't going to kick the bucket. Going into that fight, when they're about to, Gon, Killua, and his their ragtag squad of dudes, about to go into the castle where Meruem is, was the most off-put, on the edge I've been, edge of my seat, unsure I've been about any battle arc in any shonen manga I've ever read. I did not know what was going to happen. Now, obviously, I kind of realized that Gon and Killua were probably going to be fine. But just, I didn't have a clue how things were going, like what the sequence of events were going to be. Who was going to make it out of there? Would Meruem end up dead? Like, would someone end up being able to kill him? Like, there's so much uncertainty there. And Hunter x Hunter has, like, you know, especially with its most recent arc focusing on Kurapika, like, it has that habit of a lot of shonens where it really drops information on you, and you need to, like, you know, there is no inconsistencies in the logic, and it makes sure that you would know that. And I'm not the guy who really is, like, going to pick up on all that, and, like, you know, I don't care. I just kind of want to see them fight. But it builds everything in a way that makes sense, right? Like, even if they're just misadventures without really a purpose behind them, it does work. And, like, you know, I guess not really a purpose behind them is the right word, but, like, it doesn't necessarily feel like each consecutive arc builds on the last one, right? You know, maybe Gon and Killua come out of each arc a little bit stronger and more knowledgeable, but that's about it. But that being said, they are still compelling adventures, and just seeing them go about that, like how they address all of the different contingencies and like how they handle everything, just seeing that and like all of the things that go wrong and like how they deal with everything, it is good. And like even Kallua's backstory with his family of assassins is compelling as well in its own right. So Hunter x Hunter does a lot of things very well. So the only thing I think Hunter x Hunter doesn't do well is its volume covers. A lot of them suck, but it's a really enjoyable read, and I especially think if you watched the 2011 anime, you would be chilling. Really, I really want to watch the 2011 anime because it ends with Gon meeting his dad. And that's kind of like, you know, this last arc with where Kurapika's at and like going to the Dark Island or whatever. It just kind of feels like a victory lap, you know, because, you know, that final arc against the Chimera Ants, like that could have been it. Like I'm happy, you know, like Gon's you can't really use Nan anymore. Killua is like partially at least reunited with one member of his family. Like, for the most part, I'm a happy camper after that. So, a little surprising that they did a victory lap. That Togashi did a victory lap. But I actually am really invested in the new arc. So I hope it gets to have the ending that Togashi wanted it to and wants it to still. So I'm really excited for it to come back. Really am. Okay, Nisekoi. You know, this was one of my first romance anime back when I was like 16, so I was like, I gotta do it. I just gotta read the manga. It's right there on the Shonen Jump app. I just gotta do it. So I did, and you kind of see how it became the basis for a lot of harem anime going forward. Like, it sort of like became the gold standard. Like, because really it is pretty dang good. Like, it doesn't really make too many missteps, and it doesn't drag on for too long. It does drag a little bit, but the way it builds the relationships between Raku and the main two, like Shogen Kiryu and Onodera, thank you. It makes sense. It's charming. It's fun. It makes sense. And you kind of see them. Pretty much all the others, like, you know, kind of come to terms with their feelings, and especially that last arc where they finally, you know, Raku and Chitoge finally like admit their feelings for each other. There's like this big flowery field and shit, and it's like, you know, I think it spends a little too much time exploring like who's really the key holder of Raku's walk, because I don't think that ended up mattering in the end. I guess it adds some drama to it, but yeah, it was just like. It was just good. Like, it really, I you know, it's a little distant in my memory now, and I can't even remember names of shit of like manga where I literally just read them. But, yeah, no, like, it's good. For being a manga that is, like, 10 years old at this point, it does feel pretty modern in its approach to romance. So you kind of see how it became the gold standard for romance manga going forward. So because even when it does bring in new characters who for some reason end up crushing on Raku, they are charming in their own ways, and they don't feel like they take away from the story. And like when they do have their little focused chapters, it's like it's cute, it's fun. Like their feelings develop in a way that makes sense, and they're exposed to these situations that are fun and goofy, and it's quite charming. So Nisekoi is really solid, I think. It's an A. Oh, Hunter x Hunter is an S, by the way. It's a really strong S. But yeah, Nisekoi is an A. It's not as good as Blue Box in my opinion, just because I think Nisekoi drags its feet too much, and like kind of, you know, Blue Box is a lot more focused. It doesn't drag at all in my opinion. Nisekoi definitely drags, and it has a little too much going on for my taste personally, but it is good for what it is. I think very strong. So, and even the ending I think is satisfying in its own way. Honestly, I really want, like, just for the anime community, I just want another romance anime to divide us again, like Nisekoi did back in the day. I really want there to be another best girl war. I really do. We need it. We need that in our anime community these days. It's too much just like posting clips of like random bullshit on Twitter and just be like, what anime is this? And like just getting a ton of likes from it and, you know, not adding anything at all. I want another best girl war. Come on now. Who's gonna do that for us? All right, the last two are two of the big three, so I'm not gonna overstay my welcome here. They're both S tier, of course. We can just say that they're both S tier. They're gonna be S tiers. I prefer Naruto to Bleach, and Naruto is actually probably going to be my second highest, just because, well, it's already ended for one, but it also, it's very similar to One Piece in how it's structured, and it was the one, yeah, it's the one I caught up with more recently than Bleach, so, but it feels like it's more structured, it has more of a purpose to it, right? Like there's always that driving force of Naruto trying to become Hokage from the very beginning. Even something as vague as that works because you kind of see like you always feel like there's a purpose behind what Naruto's doing, and like, but Naruto, the way it expands the world, the way it develops its villains, its characters, and like the twists and turns, it's all so good. It does kind of start out a bit iffy, but once it gets to the Chunin exams, we're like, yeah, and basically everything from there is just like cool. Like I think the only missteps Naruto makes are kind of not really developing characters as much as they could, as much as Kishimoto could have, right? Like there are characters that kind of feel like they could have been worked on more. Like I think Ino comes to mind, and Tenten, and there are other characters that you know, what's his face, dog fella. Like there are characters he could have done a little bit more with, but there's also a lot of twists and turns in this huge world that like really get you invested and emotionally invested in the story, and it's compelling. It's these, you know, it's just really, really strong throughout, in my opinion. It's very close to One Piece. And again, part of that is because it's ended and we know everything. Because I think once One Piece ends, we're gonna be like, okay, yeah, that's it. You know, nothing will ever really be close to One Piece, but it has to end first, and we have to see everything. So, but I think One Piece's high points were a little bit better than Naruto's. You know, got me a little more excited than Naruto's One Piece high points. So, yeah, just really, really strong. Naruto, it has great pacing, I think. Even a lot of the battles that they have at like post-time skip that kind of seem like they don't matter, it simultaneously feels like they build on like Naruto's character and like his training and development and stuff like that. Like, again, talking about everything in this would take way too long, and I don't even remember most of the stuff, but I just know, you know, like, it would be a struggle to name a lot of the like singular events off the top of my head. But even upon like getting to the fourth grade ninja war or whatever, and like seeing everything come to a head, it's so satisfying. Like, it's done really, really well, in my opinion. Like, there are like some things that are a little confusing, like Kaguya's introduction. Like, why was she there? Did she need to be there? But as a final villain, what else were they going to do? Like, Madara was never going to be, it was, his reveal as being, Kakashi's pal. His reveal as being Kakashi's buddy, who was almost died back then and was saved by the actual Madara, that makes sense. So obviously he's not the ultimate villain. Like, there's obviously had to be a step further than that, and eventually that even playing into Boruto, like Kage being an Otsutsuki and that lore coming in later, like, it just works. So it's really nice. It's really well structured. It's really well paced. Like, and the characters are like, especially Naruto and Sakura, Naruto and Sasuke. Obviously, like, they're, Asta and Yuno are the good guy version of Naruto and Sasuke, right? Like, because Sasuke is the most edgy fella, the most edgy boy of all of the edgy boys, of course, but, like, at the same time, you do sort of feel like he's justified in what he does. Like, he's a little, still a little edgy, maybe pushed it a little too far, but, like, you do kind of empathize with him and, like, his situation, especially seeing, like, what happens to Itachi. Thank you. I didn't have to look it up. Itachi. Especially, like, Itachi is one of the most interesting parts of this universe. It's so interesting to see his story play out and, like, how it interweaves with Sasuke's story and, like, what Sasuke does motivated by Itachi, right? Like, it's so cool. Like, Itachi's by far the most, I think, like, the most interesting puzzle piece of the Naruto universe, as, from the Naruto manga itself, right? Almost like Itachi is almost like the Ada of of Naruto, like, or Ada would be the Itachi of Boruto. Like, it's just a piece that, like, you can't quite predict, and, like, will probably end up, we know where it's going to end up being crazy important down the line, but still doesn't have, like, a starring role, right? Kind of operates behind the scenes to, like, really affect everything that we know in the story. So yeah, I just really, really like Naruto. It's the only thing that the only manga I've ever read that kind of approaches One Piece's high points, right? Like, it's very, very close. Like, the moment that always sticks with me is when Naruto and Kurama finally are on the same page and Naruto lets him out of the cage in his headspace. And of course, like, Naruto meeting his mom and dad and stuff like that in the headspace. So very charming, so compelling, so like emotionally, you're emotionally invested. It's so good. But yeah, Naruto letting Kurama out of the cage, that always sticks with me. It's like, you're my partner, the Nine-Tailed Fox Kurama! And he's like, and, I read the manga, I haven't seen the anime, so I don't know what he sounds like. But yeah, so really, really good. I really like Naruto. Of course, I'm not gonna, obviously it's really fucking good, of course it is. And I love Sakura. She's wonderful. She's great. This is unrelated, but I'm just going to keep this in here because it's like a moment in history in my brain. But I just started catching up to Windbreaker at the time of recording this. I literally, right before I recorded this, I read some Windbreaker, and I just realized that Kotoha is literally just Sakura, but maybe a little bit sweeter. They're like the same girl. Wow, that's uncanny. Finally, Bleach. Literally, I think I was reading Bleach as I recorded the last tier list video I did. Obviously, Bleach S tier. But it's not, like, reading Bleach it's not hard to see that, like, how it became, like, the inspiration for series like Jujutsu Kaisen, right? Like, where you have a huge world of characters who all have these different abilities, and, like, again, they're all logically consistent. But again, like, on this end, it really again, this happens with Jujutsu Kaisen too, but again, since Bleach has ended, we can see, like, how the arcs have built on themselves, and, like, a lot of the themes that Bleach uses throughout, like, it stands so distinctly on its own. I think Bleach does still, even at this point. And, you know, you could see by, like, how much people love the Thousand Year Blood War cores that have been coming out recently. Like, they've been so good, and, like, just seeing Bleach, just, like, even reading Bleach and, like, just seeing, you know, how all of these characters are, you know, take part in the story and, like, have their different roles to play. It's very interesting. Again, something structured and paced more like Naruto is a little bit more my cup of tea, but Bleach is still very, very good. And I appreciate what it did for sure. Like, the storytelling and the pacing of Bleach is still very, very strong. Like, especially when you get to see, like, characters like Aizen and Yuak, like, they're, as villains, so interesting, and, like, again, it's hard to, like, see the power scaling a lot. Like, I hate power scaling, that term. But, like, you know, it feels like characters like Aizen and Yuak kind of transcend that, you know? Like, they're almost like gods in that sort of world. But, and again, this Bleach is the one that's farthest back in my memory at this point. But just generally, I really did enjoy reading it. Like, I don't want to harp on it for too long because obviously I'm sure just about everybody knows Bleach is great. Everybody watching this would know Bleach is great because it is. But Ichigo as the lead, I think, is, you know, especially among the big three and, like, around this time, he so stands on his own. He's such a good lead. And this is one where I think the, like, supporting cast around him, like Chad, Uryu, Orihime, and I guess Rukia would account among them. Rukia is the closest, but the other three kind of don't quite live up to how good Ichigo is, because Ichigo's really good, and they don't really spend as much time with the others as they maybe should. Even Uryu, now knowing that he's, you know, once he turns to side with the Quincy's in the final arc, it's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense, but then he ends up being a spy, spoilers. He ends up being a spy for them, or for the, you know, for the other side, for the good guys. And, you know, like, even that is like, it's not quite the character work I really wanted. Like, they do develop, especially when they do the, oh my god, what arc is it? Where they fight, Aron Cars, thank you. Thank you, Brain. The Aron Car arc, where they fight in the, the thing that sounds like, it's in Spanish. But the, you know, that's the arc where those three, especially like Chad, Uryu, and Orihime, really shine. Because they don't have huge roles to play in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Or even in the arc where they deal with Aizen. But yeah, like, so those three kind of don't quite live up. Like, Rukia's done really well, I think. Especially, like, you know, we saw even in the second core of the Thousand Year Blood War, like, her fight, she finally, like, unlocked the true Bankai and whatever. And, like, seeing all these different Bankais of the Soul Reapers, it's really cool. Like, there's this huge world, and there's still more to come in the Thousand Year Blood War with characters we haven't really seen much of so far. And, you know, characters like, oh god, you know, Crazy Man with the crazy hair, and who, like, unlocks his Bankai and becomes absolutely insanely powerful. God, what the fuck is his name? Kenpachi. Like, Kenpachi and, like, a lot of the other captains and stuff of the Soul Reapers. Like, there's a lot of characters that play roles and have, like, take actively or focused on in this story and, like, take part in the war that we see their Bankais and we see how they fight and we see their, like, kind of come to understand their characters a little bit. So that's very much like the same as what Jujutsu Kaisen would go on to do, where there's a lot of characters, a lot of different techniques that all have to be logically consistent. So in that sense, it is, like, I think it's done much better than Jujutsu Kaisen in Bleach. I think Bleach does it without overwhelming you. So it's quite good. It's very, very fun read, and it's again, like, the sort of twists and turns in the plot, it's like you're not always expecting them, and, like, especially, like, how literally the final twist is like, whoa, like, very satisfying to see. And I'm a big fan of Bleach. I don't want to like, it's hard to pick out exactly what to say, right? Because there's a lot of things I could say, but I don't really know how best to sum everything up. But I really like Ichigo. He's one of the biggest takeaways for me, was that Ichigo is just a great character. Definitely has a place among like his own very distinct place among shonen protagonists. It doesn't really feel like there are too many shonen protagonists quite like Ichigo. Honestly, like when I look at my list right now, like Chihiro comes to mind from Kagurabachi. Like definitely Kagurabachi takes inspiration from Bleach as well. Like Tite Kubo really created something special with Bleach, because it still stands so much on its own now. So I mean, yeah, it's just, like Demon Slayer feels like it kind of pulls from Bleach a lot. Like it's just really good. It's really great. So yeah, big fan of Bleach. Obviously S tier. Duh. So yeah, that's it for this edition of the tier list. I'll be adding some more next year, probably. And I might do I'll do an updated Kodansha tier list as well, with new manga that I've read since 2 years ago when I did that tier list. So yeah, but I need to catch up with, I'm going to catch up with Windbreaker and probably Loser Ranger before I do that. So that'll be a little farther down the line. But yeah, so that's it for this one, and I'll probably see you guys. I'll probably do the seasonal roundup, the next one, before anything else. I don't even know when I'm going to post this. I just recorded it so that I would have it. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and checking out my review of all my little reviews of these, and I'll see you next time.